Hello, my name is Dan Perry. Some 30 years ago, I helped create a unique nonprofit group, and I would like to share our story with you. It's a story of how a small group of people set out to square the curve of human aging. We saw the potential to strengthen human bodies and minds as we age by advocating for path-breaking discoveries from science and their speedy application to improve aging and health. The success of this small nonprofit group over the past 3 decades proves it is possible for a committed few with passion and vision to make a difference so all of us might enjoy longer, healthier lives for everyone. This is our mission, to change the face of aging as we know it through a commitment to speed the pace of science and its translation, to improve aging and health for this generation and all those to come. How did this begin? There are many worthy causes represented in the nation's capital, and a good number of them work hard to advance health and medical research. Nonprofit organizations set out to make the world, or at least a corner of it, a better place. But how do they get started? How do they gain standing? What enables an independent startup organization to effect real change when Washington, D.C. seems stuck on business as usual? And how do you launch an advocacy group that wants to change the course of human aging, something which most people think is not even possible? The American philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson said that every great institution is but the lengthened shadow of a single man. But in the case of the Alliance for Aging Research, it is a reflection of 2 men and 1 woman. The woman was Florence Stephenson Mahoney, and the men were Dr. Robert N. Butler and U.S. Senator Alan Cranston of California. Senator Cranston served 4 terms in the Senate and was my boss for more than a dozen years. He was known as a tireless advocate for nuclear arms control and for protecting the environment. He was also a dedicated sprinter in seniors track and field competition. Senator Cranston's commitment to lifelong fitness was surely a factor when he became a key champion of a new federal institute proposed to study aging and health, a National Institute on Aging, part of the National Institutes of Health. During that same time, the person pushing hardest for an Institute on Aging at the NIH was an unpaid citizen lobbyist named Florence Stephenson Mahoney. She teamed with another influential woman, Mary Lasker, and the two perfected the art of pressing Congress to multiply the nation's investment in biomedical research through the National Institutes of Health. By the 1970s, Florence became passionate about adding one more institute to study aging. She saw correctly that aging itself is the root cause of major health threats such as cancer, heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and more. By working from the outside to influence Congress for research investments to advance the nation's health and longevity, Florence Mahoney is the very model on which the Alliance for Aging Research was formed. When the National Institute on Aging was finally established in 1974, the new entity needed an effective and charismatic director. Florence Mahoney handpicked Dr. Robert N. Butler and championed his appointment before Congress. Dr. Butler was a physician, gerontologist, psychiatrist, and winner of the Pulitzer Prize for writings that coined the term ageism. I first met Bob as he stalked the offices of senators and representatives and met patiently with their staff. He was the ultimate salesman of hope that research into aging could realize untold billions of dollars and save millions of lives from the costly and disheartening spiral toward the nursing home. Each of these American leaders, Alan Cranston, Florence Mahoney, and Dr. Bob Butler, encouraged and inspired the creation of the Alliance for Aging Research. By the mid-1980s, it was apparent that the grain of America was real. Health costs were soaring, and lawmakers of every political stripe faced the dilemma how to pay for Medicare, Medicaid, and other programs for growing numbers of older Americans, especially given the looming aging of the baby boom generation. It was and is a bipartisan dilemma. How will we respond when the largest generation in American history needs even greater medical and long-term care? There were unwise and false solutions in the 1980s and 1990s that fortunately were not adopted. They ranged from rationing health care against older people to levying price controls against innovative new medical treatments. The best answer, of course, is always to learn, to discover, and to innovate. Medical science has the power to prevent, postpone, and treat diseases and disabilities more effectively. This is our best response to threatening silver tsunami of chronic diseases of aging, from cancer to Alzheimer's, from heart disease and stroke to diabetes. In our initial discussions with folks on Capitol Hill, it was widely assumed that research of such value already enjoyed the backing of the most powerful of all voices in the Capitol, the so-called gray lobby of senior citizen organizations. But that was not the case. The established, well-known lobbies that speak for older people have very different, albeit important, priorities: the benefits and services their current members receive in the here and now. Investments in biomedical research did not have vocal champions among the mainstream seniors groups. We had to start something new. We began by issuing a white paper describing a nonprofit organization that would make the case for advancing and spreading scientific research with the goal of preventing and postponing the diseases of aging. In a matter of weeks, we established a scientific advisory board that included 3 Nobel laureates, 2 deans of major medical schools, and other prominent science leaders. We next pulled together members of Congress who agreed to be listed as policy advisors. We were careful to have an equal number of Republicans and Democrats. Getting such endorsements would probably not happen today, but in the 1980s we were able to count among our friends on Capitol Hill Senators John Glenn, Chuck Grassley, Orrin Hatch, and Edward Kennedy, and in the House, titans such as Edward Roybal of California and Claude Pepper of Florida. Armed with lists of supportive scientists, plus influential members of Congress, we approached heads of foundations and top business executives to form a nonprofit board of directors. The Alliance's first chairman was David R. Carpenter, chairman, president, and CEO of Transamerica Occidental Life in Los Angeles. Soon we were filling the board with other top executives of life insurance companies. Then we were joined by Merck's Dr. Roy Vagelos, who was voted America's most admired CEO by the business press several years in a row. When Dr. Vagelos agreed to come on the Alliance board, we were deluged by pharmaceutical companies wanting to be part of our governance team. We made the decision then to limit participation at the board level by any one sector of the American corporate world, whether insurance, biopharmaceutical, or other. Our second and longtime chairman was John L. Steffens of Merrill Lynch, known to his friends simply as Lonnie. To draw attention to the new organization, we threw a party for ourselves on Capitol Hill. We persuaded the big 3 of the senior lobby, AARP, the National Council on Aging, and the National Council of Senior Citizens, to send out invitations as co-hosts, welcoming a new kid into the charmed circle. We hosted a luncheon in a Senate hearing room, and several of our congressional advisors dropped by. Among them was a young Senator Al Gore, shown here with our first chairman, David Carpenter, and John Hines, a Republican senator from Pennsylvania, who was chairman of the Senate Special Committee on Aging. We then set out to make the Alliance known by hosting a series of significant and well-attended public meetings. One of the first set out to show how advanced technologies would soon enlarge possibilities for active, independent living for older people. We put on quite a show at Epcot Center at Walt Disney World. Sketches of the future as imagined in our program materials in 1986 included a satellite dish, beakers, a robotic arm, a VHS recorder, and a car that could have belonged to the Jetsons. Our goal was to portray how technologies in the near future would link together housing, healthcare, transportation, communications, and entertainment, all enhancing the ability of older people to remain active and independent in their own homes and communities. We didn't quite have the language for it in 1986, but as it turned out, we were describing the coming digital technology revolution. Even if our representation of a technological cornucopia was a bit short-sighted, the gathering at Disney World was a great success. U.S. Surgeon General Dr. C. Everett Koop was our big draw, and Age Wave entrepreneur Ken Dykewald, as always, was a big hit. We followed the Florida meeting with one in California, bringing the great champion of America's seniors, Congressman Claude Pepper, with us. We hosted a luncheon in the courtyard of the Ethel Percy Andrus Center on Aging at the University of Southern California. Also in our early years, the Alliance encountered Dr. Norman G. Anderson, a veteran of big science projects at Oak Ridge and Argonne National Laboratories. Dr. Anderson argued that to keep our bodies functioning in the face of assaults of nature, diseases, and aging, we need to assemble a precise parts list for humans down to the molecular level. When we learned that a Senate committee was taking testimony on possible big science projects, I asked Dr. Anderson if he would report on behalf of the Alliance for Aging Research that a catalog of molecular parts could be the key to engineering healthier aging. Days later, a story in the Washington Post revealed that one of the senators who heard Dr. Anderson had plans to pump federal monies into something called the Human Genome Project. So the Alliance had an early role at the beginning of the biggest human biology project of the last century. We persuaded the American Medical Association to co-host a conference in Washington on the medical benefits of sequencing the entire range of human genes and learning their relationship to diseases and to aging itself. We attracted a distinguished group, including Dr. Leroy Hood, who invented the machinery for sequencing human genes, Dr. James Watson, co-discoverer of the structure of DNA, and Britain's Sidney Brenner. By bringing forward Nobel-level scientists, the Alliance was fast making a name for itself as a source for what matters in the science and policy of aging and aging research. We learned that a major article was to be published in the Journal of the American Medical Association. The article looked ahead to huge future increases in health costs if incidence and duration of age-related disabilities did not change. The authors were Dr. Edward Schneider, a member of the Alliance's Science Advisory Board, and Dr. Jack Goralnik of the National Institute on Aging. To generate attention, we organized a press conference in the U.S. Capitol. Among our speakers was Joseph Califano, a former LBJ Cabinet Secretary for Health, together with Claude Pepper, Dr. Bob Butler, and Senator Tom Harkin, chair of the important Senate Appropriations Committee. The following morning, our speakers appeared on the Today Show on NBC. As a result of the attention we generated, Senator Harkin and Representative Ed Roybal were able to push through an increase of 35% in the budget of the National Institute on Aging. A year later, the NIA budget went up another 18%. Harkin and Roybal also enacted legislation drafted by the Alliance, creating Claude Pepper Older Americans Independence Centers in major universities and medical schools across the country. These early successes brought us positive attention from some of the nation's leading news organizations. By the 1990s, the broad field of research in human aging was picking up respectability and momentum. This evolution was aided by an Institute of Medicine project commissioned by major foundations, including the Commonwealth Fund, based in New York City. The project's goal was to review the current state of aging research and to propose a national agenda to pursue progress with potential to improve the lives of aging Americans. Margaret Mahoney, president of the Commonwealth Fund and a member of the Alliance board, provided support for us to draw attention to the report and its recommendations. Margaret Mahoney and the Commonwealth Fund also tapped the Alliance to devise a strategy for bolstering the nation's supply of academic geriatricians to help meet the medical needs of America's swelling tide of older patients needing professional care. This assignment led directly to the establishment of the Center on Aging at the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine, and ultimately blended into the creation of the Paul Beeson Career Development Award in Aging Research. That program today is supported by a number of foundations and the NIA and has advanced the careers of more than 200 academic leaders in geriatric teaching, research, and practice. In 1992, we began hosting our annual bipartisan Congressional Awards dinner in the nation's capital. We honored Democratic Senator Jay Rockefeller, who had pressed the Pepper Commission on aging policy to include a stretch goal for medical research. And we honored Republican Senator Pete Domenici for his leadership in launching the Human Genome Initiative and for improved mental health services. That night, we also saluted Dr. Lewis Sullivan, the influential Secretary of Health and Human Services in the administration of President George H.W. Bush. In the years since our early days, the Alliance has found its voice in two ways. We produce and broadly disseminate emerging health information to guide healthcare consumers, and we are advocates for public policies that will advance and protect medical research in order to improve the quality of life for people as they grow older. Our respected health guides, brochures, films, surveys, and online materials benefit untold numbers of people. We have brought to light the latest advances in heart disease, atrial fibrillation and stroke, diabetes, cancer, bone and joint ailments, mental health, vision loss, incontinence, pain control, nutrition, and more. The Alliance for Aging Research now chairs large coalitions of interest, including one comprised of more than 50 nonprofit groups representing patients, caregivers, older Americans, women's health advocates, and clinicians, making up the ACT-AD Coalition. This coalition is the structure for regular meetings between Alzheimer's stakeholders and the review staff at FDA. The goal is to bring in the shortest possible time newer, better, and more effective treatments for the scourge of Alzheimer's disease. When it was important to show a consensus how best to measure the onset and progression of Alzheimer's disease, the Alliance assembled a dream team of top researchers. This marked a high point in the understanding of Alzheimer's measurement and prediction. The consensus was published as a special issue in the Journal of Neurobiology of Aging in 2011. We are performing a similar role between drug developers and FDA regarding sarcopenia, which is the muscle wasting that leads to frailty and loss of independence for many older people. This is the Aging in Motion Coalition, or AIM, comprised of over 30 groups, including the American Geriatric Society. When crippling limitations were imposed on research involving human embryonic stem cells, and when some in Congress even threatened criminal penalties against scientists for their research, the Alliance stepped up to lead a broad coalition to oppose unwise limits on research. We kept at it until those limitations were removed by presidential executive order and replaced with a framework for funding ethical stem cell research with full protections against abuse. We have never lost our focus on the underlying biological changes in all of us. Call it the aging process that is the common source for all that goes awry with time. We share the conviction of some of the world's leading medical thinkers that aging is the problem behind the problems. In 2006, it was an honor for me to be a co-author of an article that has often been cited in the scientific literature, titled In Pursuit of the Longevity Dividend. Together with Dr. Bob Butler, Dr. Jay Olshansky, and Dr. Richard Miller, the argument is that even a modest 5 to 7 year delay in the rate of aging across the population would yield untold benefits for people and produce unparalleled economic and productivity gains for the nation. This strategy to slow aging in order to stave off chronic illnesses, known as Gyroscience, has since blossomed into major publications, conferences, and public gatherings. It lies at the heart of a redesign of medical research taking hold across the National Institutes of Health. The Alliance is now working to ensure that promising Gyroscience collaborations have the public's political and financial support in order to make healthier aging a reality for this and future generations. One of the keys to the Alliance's success is that we view the promise of medical research in its broadest context, to support and interact with the public and private sector ecosystem that nurtures innovation in medicine. This is how medical progress comes about. Whether a polio vaccine, a clot buster drug, a breakthrough treatment for myeloma, or for breast cancer, Americans are wise to preserve this unique public and private R&D partnership, which is the essence of modern medical miracles. And now we must see that it is applied to affect the trajectory of human aging. One more very important strength of the Alliance for Aging Research is the support and guidance we derive from our board of directors. We have been blessed over the years with talent and commitment from a diverse and influential group of people. These women and men have been steadfast in their willingness to listen and learn and to roll up their sleeves as necessary to carry the Alliance and its mission forward. Halfway into the second decade of the 21st century, some of America's most respected and powerful companies and science leaders are now stepping forward to help reshape the future of aging. Over the last 30 years, the Alliance has been lifted up with great success in many of our undertakings. 3 years ago, knowing that any proactive organization needs a plan for succession, a search began for the next generation of leadership at the Alliance for Aging Research. The Alliance struck gold when our search led us to Susan Peshin. Sue is a dedicated veteran of nonprofit organizations, most recently the Washington, D.C. representative of the Alzheimer's Foundation of America. She possesses the elusive qualities of a true leader to inspire and elicit common purpose, to know when one objective is attained and when to move ahead to an even higher goal. Elected by the Alliance Board in April 2014 as President and CEO of the organization, Sue has more than fulfilled the board's expectations and hopes, and mine as well. It is said that the past is but the prologue for what comes next. It's been a rare honor to have been part of the birth, early steps forward, adolescence, and maturing of the Alliance for Aging Research. But the organization's best days still lie ahead, when science and innovation, political will, and the desires of millions of people combine to vastly improve our universal experience of aging.